The past 2 weeks, we've taken a look at some older Call of Duty titles, kind of breaking away from the norms. Right now, admittedly, we are in kind of a dry period for Call of Duty. We're in between when we just got Black Ops for the announcement of that. We also don't have DLC 2 coming out for probably another month or so within World War II. Later on in the week, we end up getting something that we don't know of just yet, but still, it's still relatively a time of downtime for Call of Duty. It's not really all that much where a lot is coming out, so kind of a break away from just trying to force some content. The last couple of weeks, we ended up talking about some of the classic titles and revisiting them in sort of a retrospective look, just for fun and just to relive some classic moments. We ended up talking about World at War, which you guys seem to really enjoy, and that video is actually taken off as of recently. Some of you guys may even be from that video if you guys are checking this one out. And last week, we talked about Modern Warfare 2, so sequentially, we're going on and continuing the trend here. This week, we're gonna be talking about Black Ops, what it's like in 2018. Now, obviously not as old as the last couple of titles we've talked about, Modern Warfare 2 and World at War. Black Ops was initially released on November 9th of 2010, so we're coming up on 8 years since the launch of this, which again still seems really crazy to me because I remember playing this in incredible detail when I was back in high school, just having a fun time playing the game with my friends and all that kind of good stuff. But while I have enjoyed World at War, while I have enjoyed Modern Warfare 2 and talking a lot about those ones, Black Ops to me, for whatever reason, just has a very special place in my heart. Admittedly, I might be very biased on this approach with this one, just because I really did enjoy this game back then, and I still do now. I jumped on, and I actually had to pull myself away from getting some footage for this video, in which I had to pull myself away and say, you know what, Jordan, you have more stuff to do. You can't really focus on this too much right now. We'll come back to it at some point in time. And come back to it, I did, because, well, it is a ton of fun. And of course, with it being something that's backwards compatible on Xbox One, that's a fantastic way to relive those moments and not have to dig out your 360 if you put it away for storage like I did. But the game is an absolute classic. Still slower paced than that of what I think World War II is, potentially. That might just be placebo effect. World War II to me still feels like a little bit of a faster paced title compared to this one, but that also might just be something that is once again either in my head or it might be something that we've actually progressed in terms of pace for Call of Duty over the past half decade or so, since before we saw the introduction of advanced movement moving into that and then settling back down to boots on the ground. It might have inadvertently changed the entire pace of the game overall, but still a classic nonetheless. The weaponry, well, again, still throwing that word classic around because it is true. Might not be as classic as some other games in the franchise, like a Modern Warfare 2 or a Modern Warfare 3, where if you think Call of Duty, those weapons immediately pop in your mind. So last week, say, we talked about Modern Warfare 2. Might not have the full arsenal of the Intervention, UMP, Barrett 50 cal, and ACR, but you do have other weapons like the M16, Galil, FAMAS, Commando, MP5K, AK-74U, Uzi, RPK, L96A1, Python, and so on and so forth. There are so many awesome weapons in this game that I honestly could go back and play any day of the week and still love this. So to me, still very classic and evokes a special kind of feeling in my heart once again for this game in particular. As for the maps, well, hate to keep throwing the word around, but classic is almost the right word in every right here for these sorts of things. While you might be hard pressed to find a lobby with all the DLC installed, the base maps are still definitely well easy to find a game on. You have maps like Firing Range, Nuketown, Summit, Havana, Launch, all great maps and then some. And that's the thing that I think that I really enjoyed going back and playing this after quite a bit of time away from the game, is that whenever I play World War II, I really do enjoy that game for what it is. But the thing that really gets me is that anytime that I live stream, people will always ask me, what's your favorite map on World War II? To which I really can't give them a straight answer, and I think that's the issue that a lot of the recent titles have had, is that there's not really any maps that capture that awe in its true format. There's nothing that really stands out like these Firing Range, Nuketown, Summits, and other maps would in, say, a Black Ops. They seem to me just seemingly mesh all together, and while again, the entire experience can be enjoyable, nothing stands out like these ones did as iconic. The gameplay itself is something that, while we can talk about the features that the game has to offer for hours and still probably have fun with it, the gameplay itself is, well, the biggest part of it. The biggest thing that I thought was really cool in terms of jumping on Black Ops all these years later, once again on Xbox One with backwards compatibility, is the lobbies. They were incredibly easy to find, and actually the one thing that really kind of helped out, and I didn't know at the time as of about a month to 2 months ago, I think, whenever we made the last video on Black Ops, I had mentioned that it seemed hard to find a lobby, say, of even TDM at that point in time, but a bunch of people pointed out that it might be because I had the DLC installed, to which this time around I went and uninstalled it before I jumped on and played any games, and that made a world of a difference. Whereas it would take, with DLC installed, a long time to find a match. I'm talking probably like 15, 20, 30 minutes to find a lobby. I found one instantaneously. I immediately saw my match options go up to, I believe, 30 and 40 just on that first initial search, which was fantastic, of course. So if you guys are looking to play this for yourselves, make sure that you disable or uninstall the DLC. Now, as for the player count though, well, this actually was hovering around 40,000 players when I played it yesterday. So previously, it was either a bug or actually organic players, but we talked about 2 months ago, there was over 100,000 players showing up online for Black Ops' player count. Now again, at this point, we didn't know if it was a bug, if it was a real thing, but in that same video, whenever it went and hit recommended a bit so that a lot of people that maybe aren't normally subscribed to the channel saw this, they checked it out, gave their feedback on it as well, to which some of them even pointed out that they saw it peak at over 140,000 players, which is absolutely nuts to me. But still, with the player count being large, though it dipped down drastically compared to that 140,000 players, it is still incredibly easy to find a lobby because of this. And to me, it's definitely much greater than what I saw with World at War whenever we played 2 weeks ago, and potentially even Modern Warfare 2 with last week's video. The only thing is that my player count on Modern Warfare 2 is bugged. Maybe yours is, and it's not just me. But anytime that I would look at the player count in that match selection where I wanted to go and play a specific game mode, every single one would say 0 of 0 players online. So I had no real indication as to what the player count and active player base on Modern Warfare 2 was last week, but seemingly both of these are dwarfed in comparison to what Black Ops has to offer in terms of sheer player numbers. So it'll be incredibly easy to find a lobby if you guys want to go back and try this out for yourselves. Now, as for connection, that's one of the biggest things that, again, a lot of people really start to think about whenever they take a look at these older games, because as of recent years, Call of Duty has adapted hybrid and dedicated systems for servers. So hybrids, it tries to connect to dedicated servers as much as possible, but sometimes it doesn't, and therefore you'll have peer-to-peer connections. And then if it's on a dedicated server system, well, you always have a dedicated central location to connect to, and it's not going off of somebody else's who might be on a McDonald's Wi-Fi. However, Black Ops still was not in that age of hybrid systems, so it is a peer-to-peer connection, so lag can occur, but admittedly, I didn't really feel an ungodly amount of lag when playing around on this game for a few hours yesterday. You might see in the array gameplay that I lag a bit, but it's still manageable. And I feel like Modern Warfare 2's that we showcased last week was actually way worse than what we see in any of the gameplay that I experienced on Black Ops. So definitely nice to see that the connection isn't all that bad. You're going to lag a little bit, yes, but it could be way worse. Now, for the first time out of the last 2 showcases, we can talk about hackers and modders in a more positive manner, because as we saw with World at War, and of course Modern Warfare 2 probably being one of the most modded games in the franchise and maybe mainstream in terms of modding of the 360 and PlayStation 3 era, Black Ops doesn't really have all that much. Now, of course, I'm not saying it never happened, but I didn't come into any contact with this out of the hours that I played yesterday, and of course, even more so the couple of times I've played in the past couple of months, gathering footage for other videos or just casually playing it. So while I do remember it happening back in its prime, I don't see all that much happening now on Black Ops at the moment. So if you guys want to try and avoid playing them, well, you can probably just play casually, not really run into many modders on 360, Xbox One, or even PlayStation 3 at this current time. So it's definitely nice to be able to do this. But the big thing that I really want to talk about is probably the biggest feature that this has available to it, and it kind of alienates one side of the console platforms. But if you guys are on Xbox, well, the beauty is that it is backwards compatible, and I think that is a big reason why we still have a large player count for this compared to other classic titles, and why it is so easily accessible. If you guys played it back in the day and you still have your disc, you can simply pop it in and just play whenever, or if you don't have it, I believe you can probably get it for like $5 to $15 used at your local game store, or I forget how much it is actually on the Xbox store itself, but still, it is a lot of fun and a very cheap experience to end up getting, and backwards compatibility allows you to have that current generation hardware and not have to bust out something that's an entirely different system just to play this title, which is beautiful. I absolutely love having the ease of access with backwards compatibility. I think that that is one of the biggest things that has afforded this to be something that still stands the test of time and makes an even greater game that much better to be played 8 years later. So with that said, that's gonna conclude this video here at this one. Love to get your thoughts and feedback down there in the comment section down below. Have you guys played Black Ops as of recently? And if not, well, do you guys plan on it by either this video or just even hearing the idea of playing it now? I think it's really worth going on and trying it out once again. Even though it's still almost 8 years old, it is a fantastic title, and it's one of my favorites of the classic titles in the franchise. So definitely still a lot of fun. Population is great, so you'll definitely find lobbies. I find myself running into some people that still seem really new to the game, as crazy as that sounds, so you might even have a good time pulling off a nice few lobbies here and there, but nonetheless, it is a blast. It's a ton of fun. I highly recommend it. So let me know your thoughts down there in the comment section down below. Do you guys want to go back and try this out a little bit for yourselves now? Are you going to? Have you done so? Whatever it may be, let me know down there in the comment section down below. But hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you guys did, make sure you drop a like down below, and of course, if you guys are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding these retrospective looks at older Call of Duty titles. Next week, if we keep going sequentially, you know what that means. Modern Warfare 3 will be busting out, so keep your eyes open for that. But also, if you guys want to stay up to date with anything Black Ops 4, Call of Duty World War II, all that good stuff, anything relating to those, we got you covered here up on the channel. So if any of it interests you, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. If you guys want to follow me over on Twitter, that's the best place to get connected with me outside of YouTube. Practically live on Twitter, so if you guys want to strike up a conversation, ask me a question, whatever it may be, link is down there in the description below. And finally, if you guys want to follow me over on Instagram, I'm trying to be a little bit more active over there as well, so if you guys want to follow on that front, feel free to. That link is also in the description. But I'll see you guys later. Thank you guys all so much for watching. Hopefully you guys had a fantastic day. Mine is an espresso. Take care, and peace.